Hello guys, Tillis20 here and welcome back to City Skylines Miami. In today's episode, we're finally going to be tackling the project of the Everglades. This has been something I've been hanging out to do for quite a long time, but I knew that I had to get a lot of the city done before getting out this far. And the funny thing is I thought that this was going to be the last thing I was going to do in this project, but now that I've done it, I really just want to finish up the entire map. So I'll be talking a little bit more about the future projects I want to do in the Miami series. This has probably extended the series by about 3-4 episodes, funnily enough, because I really thought that after doing the Everglades I was like, okay, and that's it, we're done. But we're not. We've got a few more projects to do, and I'll talk a bit more about that in the live play around the 14-minute mark. I'm going to leave a timestamp in this episode so you guys can skip to that if you're interested in seeing that portion of the episode. But for the time being, we're going to be working in a time lapse. And you're actually going to see a fair amount of work being done within a pretty short amount of time. I had to cut out a bunch of footage because it's a lot of tree placing down and me figuring out how this is going to look. This was very much a classic move by me, thinking that it was going to be fairly easy and I was going to be able to put a fair amount of detail into this area. Just thought, okay, just place down some trees and put some these canals in and some roads, and that'd be pretty much it. But unfortunately, getting the trees right was really hard because the types of trees that come with the vanilla game just don't match the types of foliage that you'd find around the Everglades. For those of you who don't know the Everglades that well, it's more of this marshy, swampy type of environment. A lot of it's protected, which I'm so happy about, and apparently that's because there's not a huge amount of work that they can really do around here, like in terms of development. It's quite a swampy and wet environment that you can't exactly build too much stuff on. There's only so much you can really build in an environment like that. So, I mean, that's just an absolute bonus really for this environment. So it's really cool to try and build something like this, but unfortunately the vanilla trees just don't match this type of environment. I really needed, some really nice reeds or some really low lying shrubs, but unfortunately the types of trees that come in the game are just pretty tall and don't really match it. So this is going to be very similar to the types of farms that are built in the last episode, where they look quite cool from afar and they really frame the rest of the city. And that's what this was going to look like. You're going to look from it from afar and think, okay, this looks great, looks like a swamp. But really, when you get nice and close, it's not quite the same. So the detail work is just not there, unfortunately. But regardless, in the same vein of this project, just working with vanilla assets, it is actually really quite fun to see it really come to life and push through what feels quite impossible to do when it comes to using assets like this. And that's half the reason why I even started doing it in vanilla in the first place, is to see what you can actually achieve with these types of assets. And hopefully this might give you guys a bit of inspiration to do something similar. I've really enjoyed working with vanilla assets, even if it's quite limiting when it comes to the possibilities. But in the same sense of that, it's you can actually achieve quite a lot just by sticking with what you have and trying to make different assets work in ways that they probably don't feel quite possible. So I think what really makes this come to life and makes it feel quite swampy is the map theme that I'm using. I can't remember the name of the map theme, but it is in the description below. But basically, some of the textures, the resources basically that I'm using, they give this really muddy type of effect. And then I've just painted that all the way around the borders where I think the Everglades are going to sit, because I think that this gives this really nice muddy effect and it feels quite swampy, even if in actual fact there's not that much water that I'm placing down in these areas, because I feel like the water in this game doesn't really match the types of swampiness that I was going for. I really want that low lying swampy effect so that you can only, you can barely see it through the reeds of the foliage. And I just think that the map theme really sells that, which is really great. But to get that swampy effect as well, I also placed down some of the sewage treatment that's just going into the streams on the very borders of the map. and that just makes the water a little bit of a different color. So I'm sorry if that triggers a lot of you guys by knowing that there's like a whole bunch of sewage on the edge of the map, but I think it works well for just creating that different color of water, and yeah, I think it just works really well. Something else that worked really well was using the surface painter. There's I can't remember what it is. I think it might be the fertile surface color, but that just makes the color of the mud just a little bit darker, which I think just really works. And then when it comes to the placement of trees, it's funny because at first I thought I was just going to cover the entire borders with just a type of tree and just going to call it a day, but you know, as you start working on it, you think, okay, well, where are the trees going to properly fit, and how am I going to use them to give the illusion of, you know, little streams or pockets of water, or, you know, how are we going to use them? So first of all, I had to try and find a tree that I thought was going to fit in this environment the best. I can't remember which one I chose, but this is probably the more realistic looking vanilla tree. I think I might have chosen like three types, and they're like a bit more of a darker color, which I think gives off a little bit more of a swampy type of atmosphere. And then I've just been using them around the water sources so that you can see that, you know, around where the water is, that's where most of the foliage is, because trees love water, so this is where they're going to be sitting. And then to give the illusion of smaller streams around this, I've been trying to use just the trees in a little bit more of like a wavy, windy sort of effect to show that there is like this body of water underneath here, but you probably can't see because it's so small. And it actually gives off this really cool effect that it looks like there are little streams or little inlets that branch off from these larger water sources, which is something that I noticed from the Everglades. Kind of looks like these branches, sort of looks like these trees from afar, which I, you know, wanted to try and give the same effect with. And yeah, I think it worked pretty well. Even if you know there's no water below there, you know, it gives off that effect. And again, you will see this better in the live play at the end. And I do go back and forth between like different builds as I work on the trees, and then I move on to the roads, and then I go back to the trees, and I go back to the roads. I kind of go back and forth as I try and figure out how I'm going to make all this work. But now feels like we're finished with the Everglades, but we're not. I've realized that, you know, as I started working around here and doing a lot of the nature stuff, I was like, okay, now all the roads that I planned around this area don't make a huge amount of sense. And, you know, if I'm going to continue this project and, you know, branch it out into this different area, I need to rethink how the roads are going to sit. So now I'm working on a bit of the layout that's going to be sitting around here. I really love the way that there is this highway that stretches around Miami and goes in through some of the Everglades, and there's like this industrial area around here that I thought would be really sort of fun to put in. So I thought that this would be a really good area, and it makes a really nice border for this area of the map. So yeah, this is where I'm just putting this highway, and I don't think we get this far like when it comes to putting down the Everglades, but I'm thinking that I might use this area to potentially build some sort of like extra suburbs around here. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but I've got some plans. You can listen to the live play at the end to get a bit of an idea of what I want to build in this area. But something that's been really nice about this project is it's quite easy to round off because of the Everglades, because the Everglades are just like so prominent, and it's like, okay, you can't build any further than this. That's basically the border. That works really well for me because in other projects of mine, you know, cities expand out in such a huge way. You know, it's not just you have the city and then there's bam, it's finished. It's, you know, you got all these suburbs around here, and then the suburbs change shape, and then you get to farmland, and then you get into like towns and all this sort of stuff, and it's so hard to get out in those areas. Whereas in this project, there's some very prominent borders, and I really like that. It's something that I didn't really notice when I first started it, but it's worked really well. It's worked in my favor because it means then I can actually just place down, you know, a pretty prominent border of the Everglades, and then that's about it. That's what I've done on the other side of the city, whereas on this side of the city, I wanted there to be a little bit more of a transition from the city, from the suburbs, and then we get into what feels like an extra portion of the city, or there's going to be more cities above that. So my version of Miami sort of flipped upside down, if that makes sense. Where I have the farmland in my version is sort of north rather than where it should be. I don't know if that does make any sense, but basically I'm really happy with the way that my version is shaping out because it feels quite different to what Miami really looks like, but I think the essence of the city is still there. Because I really didn't want this project to just turn into me building Miami and, you know, trying to go one for one for what it actually really looks like. Instead, I really wanted this project to feel like the essence of a place, but then feel quite different at the same time. And I really hope that I've achieved that look. I mean, you guys can let me know. I know a lot of you guys are from Miami and or at least from the area, have been to Miami or who are American or whatever. I would love to know, how's this taken shape? I mean, I know we are working full vanilla and I know that it is pretty different with the layout and everything, but I would love to know, how's this all taken shape? And if there's anything extra that you think I should work on in this project, little bits of details, then please let me know in the comment section, particularly if you want this project to continue. It's not gonna continue. There's definitely a limit, but yeah, if you guys have any like suggestions or things that you're like, dude, make sure you get this, or make sure that this is included, or the essence of that is included, then hit me up in the comment section so then I can you know, take those into consideration as we work towards finishing this city or this region, because as you can see, this has sort of become a little bit more than just the city of Miami. We've really we've extended out the map. I've ended up downloading the 81 tiles mod and was like, you know what, let's just do this entire thing. Let's do this properly. So I do hope you guys are keen for the rest of the project, and you can see how like much I've extended out the map as well. I mentioned this in the last episode, but I didn't want to just finish it. You know, just go like, okay, the city's done, we're finished. I haven't really completed a map quite like I plan to complete this city. So yeah, I'm sort of excited to see how far we can get it and how completed we can get this to look. And yeah, I reckon we've probably got about 5 or so more episodes to go. And I do have a bit of an idea of where I want the episodes to sort of pan out, but there's a lot of little extra details that I'm sure that you guys can help me out with. But the road layout is pretty cemented in place, and I'm pretty happy with how everything is, you know, looking, where it's going to be going. I was having a bit of trouble with this train line, and I figured, you know what, let's get it out into the edge of the map, and you can see that it's going to be taking the path over, going way down south, but I'm actually going to change the direction of it because I would like there to be a bit more of like a national park-esque area of the Everglades rather than just these highways that stretch out into it. So I will work around there. But yeah, I really love these highways, and I'm pretty keen to, you know, get some foliage and Everglades around these areas because I think that's gonna, you know, really make these areas feel quite realistic. And you can also see there's a whole bunch of these canals that I've got stretching out in these areas. I would love to know what the purpose is for these canals. I've noticed a whole bunch of them in Miami, and I guess they're to direct water into, you know, more specific areas, so maybe like channeling it away from the city or channeling it into agriculture. But it's definitely quite easy for me to create that effect using these canals that come with the game. They're not exactly right, and they're probably a little bit thicker than I would have wanted them to look. I will end up, like, I do a couple of different types of canals. Like I use the base game canal, and then I do this other one where I basically sink a path down pretty low, and you know, you can create a bit of a different type of one. And I just think the effect's pretty decent. But I wanted it to look like the highways, well, like there was like a drain that went underneath the highways. So you saw that before, the highways instead turned into a bridge and went over these little canals. But I thought that in a more realistic way, they would probably have little tunnels or little drains that go underneath. So instead I changed them out, and yeah, I think the effect's way better. And now I'm starting to work on little pockets of water and little streams that flow around here. I think that this works pretty well. I mean, this is something that I wasn't thinking about doing. But then like when I started getting into it, it works really nicely. And again, you know, you can see where it's like works much better than other areas, and it's not like exactly how the Everglades look. You know, I would love to use, like, I'd love to do the same thing with workshop assets, and I know a lot of you guys are like, oh, $2, like maybe when you finish doing this project you can do a Miami version with mods and assets. I'm not going to do that. This is pretty much ticking the box of Miami for me, and that's about it. You know, there's only so much of one project you can do. I've got about 5 other projects I want to do that I just you know, I've just hold off not doing because I get accused of starting projects all the time. But guys, I can assure you, there's like a billion projects I want to do, and I just go, nah, don't do it. Finish the other projects through. So there's a lot of ideas flowing through my head, trust me, and I'm so curious to see what this would look like with mods and assets, well, with extra assets. But yeah, I think we're pretty much done here. And speaking of done, that is pretty much it for the time lapse, and now we're going to get into the live play, and I can show you a little bit better of all the things that I've been up to. Well, I am so pleased with how this looks. I don't think I've done the borders of a city quite like I have done the borders of Miami, and it has breathed so much new life into this project for me. I was so close to wrapping this up. I was going to stretch out 2 episodes. Now I feel like doing a few more because there's like a whole bunch of projects I want to work on. So I'm very much excited and pumped for the rest of the series. Again, like, we are still going to wrap it up. Like, it is at their last legs of the series, but there are definitely a couple of extra episodes that I'm keen to do because it just completes the city so much more than having just, you know, what it was like before. Very uncompleted areas in the distance. Now it feels, at least all this area over here feels completed. And I'm going to talk about some of the new projects that I have in mind, and I'll whip up some Google Earth as well just to show the references. But like I mentioned in the time lapse, this is purely from a distance. You can't get too close to these things because that just does not capture what the Everglades is truly like. If I was able to use workshop assets, trees, Mr. Mason, Padelmo, all those good tree assets, then yeah, we'd be able to get something pretty detailed, but we're not going to do that. This is about as good as it's going to get for a vanilla city like this. But look, no complaints. I think it's decent. Some of my favorite little things that I've put in is I've added in a bunch of extra foliage around here just to really show that there is a transition happening from what is this agriculture area and the Everglades that's creeping in. Well, if anything, the agriculture is creeping into the Everglades, not the other way around, unfortunately. And I've also got like these road networks, which I think I'm going to put just like little scattered bits of industry around here because, yeah, like I said, humans are encroaching on the Everglades territory. So yeah, we'll have to do a bit of that. Future projects, I thought I was going to put in a nuclear power plant right here. I've even mapped it here like that, but that's a little bit too close to the city now. So I don't think we're going to do that. I'm taking reference from, I'm just going to drag this one over. So there is a nuclear power station over here, which is pretty cool. This is pretty sick. And I think it'd be really cool to do something like this in Miami because, you know, why not? And I think we can achieve something really cool like this too. What's it called? Turkey Point Nuclear Generating Station. So I'm thinking instead of over here, why don't we put it over here? And we're going to turn this area into a bit more of a national park area plus a nuclear power station. And then that'll complete this area. So that'll be one project. I'm thinking, and at this moment I'm pretty keen to do it, but we'll just see how we go. But I do want to put some sort of university here. One university that I could take ideas from is this bad boy over here. I'm thinking about maybe building something like this. And I think that'll make a really nice transition from the city, you know, do a bit more of this sort of stuff, and then we can transition it into what's going to be over here, you know, a bit more nature. So I think that'll be a good transition, but again, that's like last on my list of things that I want to do. And then over here, I would like to put some sort of Kennedy Space Center. I don't really know how I'm going to build this thing. It's going to be pretty tricky. And I'm just going to say it right now. I'm not going to go to huge amounts of detail. I am purely just going to get the vibe of this place because I don't know much about space shuttles. I don't know much about NASA. I mean, I know a bit. This is an Air Force station. I guess I'll capture something like this, but again, like I'm not very into military either. But this, I think, is very, very important in a Miami build. So I'm going to put that in because I think it'd be really, really fun. I'm keen to build it, but don't expect huge amounts of detail from me. It's not going to be hugely accurate. I know that it's very much a meme to build a military base, but you know, this is going to be more NASA than anything else. And we do have a couple of vanilla assets that we can use for it. So that'd be pretty cool. And then there's one more project that I would like to tackle, and that's over here. I'm going to flesh out these suburbs. And what I'm thinking for that is I haven't done a huge amount of... So these little communities that are just surrounded by golf courses and man-made lakes. They're pretty bizarre. I'm not going to lie. They're very, very strange. But I think I can't finish a Miami project and not do something like this. And I think we'll be able to achieve a pretty cool look using vanilla assets. So I will give this a crack. So I'm not sure what the order is going to be for working on these projects. I think I'm going to do the nuclear power plant next. And I'm hoping when I do that project, I'm going to tackle some of the other little details of the Everglades. Oh boy, we still got this to build. Well, I don't know what we're going to do here. I don't know. If you guys have any suggestions, then let me know. But I don't even know if we'll get here. But you know what? I do want to finish this project. I do want everything to be finished and completed. And if you guys are keen to see anything in particular amongst those builds, then do let me know in the comment section below. If you guys are enjoying the content and want to support the channel, then I do have a Patreon page where you can get early access to videos, save games, live streams. There's a whole bunch of extra stuff if you are interested, but it just means I can release videos like 3 times a week at the moment. It's pretty awesome, and I do really appreciate the support. I want to give a special shout outs to some of my patrons like Mike and McFarlane, Michael, Christian Nyes, Marcus Ola, Samuel Liu, Diego Esfado, and Jacob Iverson. Thank you all so much for watching. It's very much appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.